back in that bag again. Whoa, yeah.
Welcome to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Steve Hartman. This is your go-to resource for everything hoops, from the high school hardwood to the Target Center. We've got a massive show today. We're performing an autopsy on the disaster that was Game 2 in San Antonio. The Wolves get blitzed 133-95. Looked completely out of sorts offensively against the Spurs defense. We'll talk about the adjustments needed as the series shifts back to Minnesota. Specifically, how to keep the ball in the center third of the floor, what kind of matchups the Wolves can do, what lineups can they go to get back on the winning track here in Game 3. Plus, we're going to go into a shooting lesson from former Egan head coach, owner of McKenzie Shooting Academy, Kevin McKenzie's joining the program. We'll break down mechanics, footwork, and what separates good shooters from the elite ones. Before we tip off, though, today, do me a quick favor. Hit the follow button on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. Follow the Splash City Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen, so you never miss an episode in the future. But with that, let's get into it. Timberwolves ran into a buzzsaw in San Antonio last night, Game 2, getting blitzed 133-95. The Spurs forced 22 turnovers and used a lot of swarming, trapping defense. De'Aaron Fox rebounded nicely. Jaden McDaniels battled foul trouble again. And sadly, Ayo Dosunmu is out as quickly as he returned, again with a heel injury. To help me break it down, we'll talk about Game 2, maybe look ahead at Game 3. I'm thrilled to welcome back to the podcast longtime high school coach and now operator of McKenzie Shooting Academy, Kevin McKenzie. Kevin, how you doing, man?
Great. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's start. I'm excited to talk about shooting. It's one thing we haven't really talked specifically about on my podcast here since we started. But I want to first talk about the Wolves because it's fresh in our minds. And I don't know if did you make it through the whole game, or were you one of those that turned it off in the third,
I'm a junkie, man. Like I watched the whole thing. Watch Ingles trying to throw lobs up and all the stuff. Like I'm a diehard. So yeah, watch the whole thing.
Yeah, me too. Sadly, I saw the Joe Ingles 3-ball too, and I was like, all right, we need more. Maybe we need more Joe Ingles to make some shots here for us. Obviously, the Spurs defense ratcheted it up. I likened it to like Game 5 in Denver, where you could tell they were more focused on the drives. They were more ready for it. Wolves couldn't make a shot, and it just spiraled. What did you? I was watching the trapping, and I think that looked to me like the Wolves did not prepare for that. What did you see like in that first half before things got really out of hand? Like, what was kind of the biggest issues the Wolves were having?
Well, I think the thing that jumps out to me, and I saw this on Game 1 too, is that the Spurs are only going to help on a certain number of guys, basically on Ant and Randall. And then when other guys are driving, they're staying connected and don't want to give up any inside-out threes. So early, I saw Jaden being effective. He was able to get in there and get to his mid-range and finish in the lane. Unfortunately, he got into the foul trouble that he tends to get into from time to time. And then when Ant came in, he had that look that he was, looking to make something happen, and came out and shot some quick threes that didn't go in. And then it just kind of spiraled. I thought, once they started trapping, Ant was finding the other guys pretty quick. But we just didn't have much movement after the initial pass. And we seemed, if I'm being honest, I think the Spurs played hard and were effective, but we were pretty easy to guard. There wasn't tons of movement. Wasn't tons of off the ball stuff. And when we did have some pick and roll opportunities and get to that kind of mid range where they're in their drop coverage, we weren't able to finish. Shannon missed some layups, got blocked a couple times that he was making those in the first game. So, and then it just kind of spiraled after that. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the Spurs ratcheted up their defense, but I think we were our own worst enemy, to be honest with you, with the ISO stuff and the poor ball movement and maybe some bad shot decisions.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where to me, I really noticed the lack of true point guard. And I know there's not a lot of true point guards in the NBA anymore, but to me, like Ant off the ball, they're not going to trap, Ayo bringing it across, or, even if Jaden were to bring the ball up, they're not going to probably trap that. And so I was kind of waiting for the Wolves to just, get the ball in the middle third and with somebody else and get Ant coming off like the first screen or first action, you get him away from the ball, but dribbling it across the timeline slowly on the corner on the side, just to me is like, that's just bad offense to start with. Like I didn't, and I don't know if that was just, if that's something they normally do. I don't dive into all the film as much, but like against the Spurs, who are scrappy and super quick and were pressuring, just felt to me that an adjustment they could have made was just get it across in the middle of the court, versus bringing it up the corner and stopping like Ant did a couple times. I think Bones got trapped up there a couple times as well. So it's just, um,
Yeah,
I
Bones is
don't know.
struggling with the ball
Yeah,
handling.
yeah,
He's not he's not able to operate like he does in the regular season because things are a little more intense, a little more physical. I think the offense actually moves better when Conley's in there, but
hmm
with Ant coming off the bench, by the time Ant's ready to come in, Conley's you're not going to play him more than 6 minute stints. So then
yeah,
with Ayo, kind of banged up, those are our three main ball handlers, and
hmm
Conley missed some shots that he made in the first game. He came off a ball screen, was wide open for a three and airballed, missed a
yeah,
good corner three look, and that's a guy that they're going to let operate if he can get it done. So, they're just going to have to make those adjustments. Randall is so much better when he's making quick decisions, and I hear Finch say that all the time.
yeah,
When he grabs the ball at the high post or in the off the block a little bit and he holds it, they just load up on him or they hard double, and it's just almost a turnover every time. But when he grabs and rips and attacks, there's not much they can do about it, and that's when he has success. And it's surprising that he kind of goes back to that holding the ball and letting them kind of overload and get in their spots. You got to think as a seasoned vet that he is, that he understands that making those quick decisions is his best route for being effective.
yeah, yeah. Through the game last night, it's an obvious thing that a lot of people talked about, but what do you do with Rudy on offense right now? Because, when
Yeah,
he's in the game, Wemby doesn't have to guard him, basically. Even last night, Rudy misses some around the rim, and this is a series that feels like he's going to struggle. I know you got to play him, and he's going to start, but I thought one thing they could do maybe is again Ant off the ball and use Rudy that way, to go screen for Ant away from the ball. That pulled because Wemby's going to have to stay somewhat attached there, right? Because Ant
yeah.
is going to be in space there, and then maybe that frees up Shannon more, to get downhill and get some space to get to the basket. But this is another game where I think Dante, when they lose, it's the Dante being out, I think is very glaring to me. Because if he's in the corner ready to shoot versus
Well,
some
he
of these other
does.
guys, like you said, Mike
He
Conley,
doesn't help with the
like
turnover problem, though.
maybe not,
Yeah.
but
No, yeah, he
yeah,
definitely helps space the court and his effort
yeah,
plays, and it's added. But yeah, you're right about Gobert, and look, this is why Utah kind of blew things up because they
yeah,
would get to second round, maybe even the conference finals. I don't remember. I think one year maybe,
1 year,
um,
I think. Yeah.
and they just they got in a situation where other teams are just not even guarding Gobert anymore.
hmm
And, we had some opportunities for some lobs, but, Shannon's not much of a lob thrower. And, he
Right.
missed one and a couple of them were too high for him. And then when he did get opportunities, he got fouled and went, 3 of 8 or something from the free throw line.
Right.
So yeah, he's a liability at times, when he's offensive rebounding. And that's where I think he could really make an impact is he's so much stronger than Wemby and anybody else they can throw there. If he can get some offensive rebounds, that would be very beneficial to us. But yeah, right now, I think you're right, because if he's setting good off the ball screens and they don't switch, then someone's going to be open. And if they do switch, then you got Wemby or Cornette on, Shannon or Ant, and we saw what Shannon did when Wemby switched onto him that one time. He just blew right by him for an easy layup,
Yeah.
and then there's no protection at the rim. So I think that's important. I think the only two guys that can really make that happen are Conley and Dosunmu, but Conley has limitations on the defensive end, and
Mm-hmm.
the other guy's injured, so
Right.
it's a tough deal. I don't know what the game plan was last night because I don't think it was executed. So it's
It's
hard to
hard to
tell if
tell.
it
Yeah.
would have worked. But that's the most frustrating thing. And we talked about this before we started recording a little bit. But you know, they show us that they can execute the game plan, have discipline within the game plan, do the things that you need to do to win. And they show us when they do that, they're one of the best teams, a championship contender. And then the next game, the next night, and it's very predictable. They're just the absolute opposite, and they just break our heart all the time.
Yeah. The good news is this is just a loss, like if they lost by 2, right, in a 7-game series. So they go home 1-1. You mentioned Jaden. Man, I think keeping him on the floor has got to be the biggest thing they can do in game 3, because right now he might be their best offensive player. The way, Ant's obviously not 100%. But Jaden does things, and he's what's the tallest guy Spurs start besides Wemby? 6'7", right? And they've
I
been
mean,
putting
they
Sha-
brought Brian in last night because he's 6'6" and strong, but yeah, they are small, man.
right,
And
right.
Jaden can
So
get a shot off anytime as long as Wemby's not doubling off Gobert on him.
yep.
So, yeah.
And even last night when Wemby was switched on him, I was just, I'm such a Jaden fan. I have been for a long time, but that being able to go at Wemby and hit that little floater, and he had to work for it, but he scored right over top of Wemby, and I was like, man, that is some tough stuff that Jaden is able to do. And so he's got to play like 30, probably 40 minutes, right? He's got to play 40 minutes for them to have
Yeah,
a chance.
he's 36 at minimum. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
matchup problem for them, and he was the one guy that they kind of, based on how they do their defense, they force you to kind of do some of that ISO stuff, and he was the one guy that seemed pretty effective. And he's just got to be smarter. He just gets too handsy. He gets frustrated and maybe fouls one or two times that he doesn't need to, and then it puts him in foul trouble, and then he's off the court. And
Mm-hmm.
at this point in his career, he's got to have learned those lessons by now. And I'm still waiting for it to be consistent. But once he learns those lessons that I got to stay on the court, I can still be a great defender, show the officials my hands, not bite on dumb pump fakes, not give up the stupid foul, then he'll be able to get those minutes that we need him to get. And he's a matchup problem for the Spurs for sure.
I hate to keep going back to it, but this is where you could play Dante on a more like Stephen Castle, right? Like he could guard him for a few minutes. Io could guard him for a few minutes to give Jaden time off. And instead you're going to Jalen Clark, and he just doesn't have the offensive punch those other guys do. And now, so you're just it sucks, because I do feel like fully healthy, we're probably better than the Spurs. I don't know that we are right
Yeah,
now.
Jalen's a weird deal because towards the end of the year when we had those injuries and he was playing a little bit more, he was kind of hitting that consistent catch and shoot corner three, and he just looked hesitant to shoot it last night. And
Mhm.
I just don't know. Like, I mean, as a shooter, you're either gonna knock that down or you're not. And he's shown that he can do it, but he didn't seem like he wanted to shoot the ball at all. And that's a concern because as good as he is defensively, if they don't have to guard him and Gobert out there, then they just load up on all the other guys, and it's dang near impossible to score.
Yeah, you almost can only play Clark with the Nas Julius front
Yeah.
court, right? Like, because you just can't have another not shooter out there at that time, which they're just getting to the point where they're having to create some really unique lineups that might struggle against this team. I mean, this is just, I said it in the last podcast I did a previewing kind of the series, but what a different like dynamic between the Denver series and this series. And I think the Wolves are flexible enough to win both. They obviously can beat Denver, but I feel like the Spurs are a little bit like the Wolves maybe a couple years ago, not as big, but like they rotate. They're so athletic on the perimeter. They put so much ball pressure on you. And then they got the big, Wemby versus Gobert, but in the back end. So they're like us in that way, but they're right now, they just, at least last night, they just look faster, more athletic, and more dynamic because they have multiple guys that can shoot versus the Wolves are kind of down to like two and a half guys that can shoot the three right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic with the Spurs because with Denver, it was clear, let's make Jamal and Jokic work. Let's wear them
Hmm.
down. Let's make them, anytime they score, they got to work to score. They got to, and then we're going to make them work. We put Jokic in a lot of pick and roll situations, made him work on defense. And I think Jokic and Jamal were exhausted at the end of every game in that
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
But the Spurs are a little deeper. They spread it out a little bit more. Everybody they put out there is a threat for the most part, except for maybe Cornette but yeah, I think they can match our athleticism, and we got to beat them. We got to beat them with our size and physicality, but
Yeah.
we got to play much smarter and much more disciplined. I mean, those transition baskets,
Yeah.
as a coach, those just because you can get back. Like getting back is just awareness and intensity. And
Yeah.
that was, as a coach, I'm just like, man, that those hurt. Those easy transition buckets, those are hard to recover from.
Off makes. Those are the
Yes.
ones that
Off
I
free
like.
throws.
Free throws, made baskets. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man. What are we doing? That was kind of where I felt like once the lead got to about 20, you could almost tell that they're like, I'm going to save it. I'm saving it for game 3. I don't know. That was just the vibe I got, which
I
I
thought
don't think is the right
they tried to
mentality,
put a
but
little fight up in the third quarter, and they got it, I
yeah,
think, down to 19, and then the
yeah,
Spurs went on another run, and then it was a wrap after that.
yeah, yeah. So going into game 3, um, obviously the physicality, the effort, the intensity needs to be there. I mean, you're playing in front of your home crowd. What do you think are going to be the biggest, maybe their adjustments beyond just like that thing, like effort, right? Like you just got to play a little bit harder. What do you think schematically the Wolves can do to slow down the Spurs? More so, maybe even on defense, just get them to have to guard and
Yeah.
respect us more.
I would say the number one thing is they gotta get those transition baskets taken care of. Even if they're just saying we're not going to crash the old boards, but we're not going to let them. We got to get back. You can't give up
Yeah.
easy baskets in playoff basketball. That's too important. So you got to address that. I would think, you kind of talked about it, pairing Conley and Ant, um,
Mm,
so that Conley can kind of run the offense. Ant can kind of be off the ball a little bit, which makes it harder for them to jump them and trap them.
yeah.
Doing a little bit of that. Whether Dosunmu is healthy is a big thing. It's you gotta figure that out. But if he's not healthy, then that makes it a little tougher. But pairing those
Hmm.
two, getting Ant off the ball a little bit, and you know Finch has to make a decision. I think in the fourth quarter of the game 1, they went with that Randall Nas pairing
Yep.
for what seemed like more of extended time, and then Rudy came back in to kind of finish the game on defense in the last 4 minutes. But I think that lineup, as long as we can rebound out of it, gives the Spurs a tougher time because Wemby can't ignore Nas. And Nas was the one guy, I think he maybe hit 2 or 3 threes last night that Wemby can't leave him. And if they do leave him, then we need to make sure we get him the ball. So just, I know we're not nearly as good defensively, but it might be a series where Gobert isn't playing huge minutes. He's in the closing, he's starting, he's in there when we need him, but maybe going more with the Nas Randall, just to keep Wemby out of the paint might help. But
Hmm.
it doesn't really matter if the guys aren't gonna execute the game plan and
Yeah.
do the things that they need to do and play with winning habits.
Hmm.
It doesn't really matter what Finch adjustments he makes. The guys got to be a little bit more mature and a little more disciplined in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I think I was listening to Dane Moore talk about this. I think it was him. They talked about the offensive rating and defensive rating with Rudy on and off, right? And the
Yeah,
defensive rating is like so much better, but the offensive rating is historically low when Rudy's on the court.
yeah,
So you're in this like super hard position as Finch. And in game one, you could manage it because you had a lead. And the reason they got that lead is because they played the Julius Nas group together and they scored. They were able to pull Wemby out. They could get buckets at the rim. And then when they got the lead, you put Rudy back in and you could play defense to finish the game out. I don't know how that plays out in the first and second quarters, though, because, you can't let the game get out of hand early because you're completely unable to score. I think the other thing with that group is you have ball handling. Like you could throw it to Julius at the nail or the high post, and he can not only can facilitate, but he can score from there. Rudy is never going to do that. And so if they're going to be blitzing, if they're going to be trapping, now you have another ball handler versus when Rudy's on the court, you're playing 4-on-5 or 4-on-4 on the backside, really. So,
yeah.
because
I
Rudy's not
actually
doing
think
anything.
Randall does a really good job on Wemby. It's kind of like
Hmm.
when PJ Tucker used to guard Karl Anthony Towns.
Yep.
Just get in a space, but he had the strength where he could stand him up. Wemby had that one nice move where he spun and scored in the middle, but Randall gives him a tough time because of his strength, and he's just tall enough to kind of, at least put a hand in his face.
Hmm.
But that strength, I think, bothers Wemby. You're just gonna have to dig on him if he's trying to dribble around in the paint. But I'm not. I don't think you need to have Rudy out there to guard Wemby because the rest of the team's so small that
Right.
we match up fine. As long as Nas is in a stance and sliding his feet, and trying to stay in front of people, I think you can be a little better defenders with Gobert not out there. But it's a tough deal. I'm a defensive guy. I understand the value of Rudy, but sometimes you got to look at the matchups and say when he's out there on offense, there is nothing in the lane unless we can throw him lobs. There's just nothing there,
Yeah.
and so we turn into a kind of swinging around and someone jacks a 3-pointer up, and that if they're going great, but if they're not, your offense looks like it did last night.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is why I kind of feel like you have to put Rudy screening away from the ball in this series because if you screen the ball, Wemby's going to be the guy helping, and you don't want that. If you
Yeah,
screen Rudy away from the ball, and then there's been at times in this series where Wemby's guarded Shannon, and I think the Wolves would take that. Like you said, he should be able to
he
get by
can't stay in
him,
front of Shannon.
right? And then
Barely anyone
and
can
then
stay in front of Shannon.
right, even when they know he's going left every single
Yeah,
time, which is crazy. But I think the difference is like normally you'd have Ant as the ball handler, right? But now when Ant is the ball handler, who are you kicking out to? You're kicking out to Shannon
yeah.
or maybe Mike Conley, but like. So Shannon becomes Ant. Shannon breaks the paint. Shannon's the playmaker, and now you're kicking out to Ant, your best 3-point shooter right now. Which
Yeah, the
to me,
problem
I
with
kind of
that
like that
is,
dynamic.
though, the problem with that is Shannon's not a very good passer.
No,
Yeah.
probably he's not great, but
Yeah.
I mean, your options are Mike Conley and Shannon and Ant.
Yeah.
And Ant's on like basically 45. He's got knees like you and I do, I bet, right now.
Yeah.
So
No, it's,
he's just not
you
as
know,
explosive.
19 years in the league and the fact that he's still pretty effective is pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. The key is Ayo. Like if you can get Ayo playing, like I don't think he looked great last night. Like he didn't look healthy. I mean, he's the other guy. Like he is a good passer and he is quick and he has a burst. Not as much as Shannon, but he is that guy. If you could unlock some what are the chambers that Ants was laying in to get his knees right? Like he needs some of that therapy to get healthy because now you got somebody who can get downhill and is a good passer.
Well,
So
luckily, they said it was a heel and not
right,
his calf. So, if it's just a kind of a, something that they can treat and he can be ready to go, maybe put a little extra padding in the shoe. It's hard to tell. But yeah, he's when Dante went down, I was like, we're okay because we had him.
right,
We're gonna be okay. But then when he went down, I'm like, man, we're deep, but I don't know if we're that deep because our ball
yeah,
handling, our
yeah,
ball handling is our biggest issue. And now, our best ball handlers are banged up except for Conley, and he's dang near 40 years old.
right. Who and he's been playing well. Like I mean, the whole playoffs basically since Dante and Ant went down in game 4 in the Denver series. I feel like Mike's and I kind of said this at the end of the regular season. He was starting to like make some shots again, and I'm like, it felt stupid at the time to say like, oh, Mike Conley could be an X factor because he was hardly playing. But now you look at and he because he does the right things defensively. He battles a little bit like as much as he can at his age and size, and he makes winning plays a lot. So I hope they keep. I could see them going back to him and Ant. I think Ant might get the start in game 3, and you kind of get back to the little bit more regular lineup and bring Shannon off the bench and Bones and Nas. Nas also, I think, has been playing pretty well considering his. God, we looked like a mash unit last night. Did you see the image of the? They
With all
showed the
the
Wolves bench.
yeah,
Ant's got ice on
everybody's
both
all
knees.
iced up.
Nas,
Yeah,
yeah, ice, and Io's not even there because he's. I don't know. He must have been in the training room or whatever. And God, I'm like, this is too bad. But
yeah.
you come
That
home, your role players are going to play better. Like I'm still confident the Wolves can at least push it to 6-7 games, maybe win the series.
I still think we need some things to go the right way. The biggest thing is the execution, the turnovers. You can't have more than 15.
Yeah,
We're not going to win if we're giving them that many more possessions than us.
yeah,
Because of the way they're pushing the ball, we're not able to offensive rebound, the way that we probably need to. And it really comes down to a possession game. And if we're turning the ball over 20 plus times, it's pretty hard to beat a team that's as good as the Spurs, even with their lack of experience in the playoffs. Because they're going to turn those turnovers into easy buckets.
hmm
And yeah, the turnover situation, that was the glaring thing to me, and the not getting back on defense. Uh,
yeah,
you're just not gonna beat any good teams doing that.
right. It's funny. I'm looking at the stats from both games right now, and they're actually quite similar in terms of like points off turnovers, fast break points. The game we won, they outscored us 27-10 in fast break points in game 1,
Yeah.
and in game 2 it was 29-5. So you know, a difference, but not like crazy. And then the turnovers are the biggest thing that changed from game 1 because paint points in the paint would be the other one. Points in the paint, they had the same amount in both games, and we went from 52 to 36. So, like, points in the paint, obviously a lot of transition. I think you're right. The fast break points are huge, and especially off of those made baskets. Like, if you just take away, I don't know how many they had last night. It's not tracked here, but like, okay, they're going to get 12 to 16 probably just in general off of a rebound or off of a steal, but you got to limit those other easy ones that should not happen.
Yeah, that's when unless you're in the locker room, you don't know if that's a scheme issue of what they were trying to do or if it was an effort issue or an awareness issue. It looked like an effort awareness issue to me.
Agreed.
Because the first game I noticed there were times where nobody crashed the offensive boards and everybody was getting back and they were giving up nothing easy. And I have a feeling that's what the game plan was. And they just do it last night. They just
Yeah.
decided that was not something they were interested in doing, which is frustrating for a coach
Right.
and fans. So
And to your point, the offensive rebounds in games 1 and 2 were exactly the same. We had 12, they had 13. So it's not like we were attacking the glass more in game 2 and just they were beating us down the court. It was literally we weren't doing that either, apparently. So um yeah, I mean the turnovers are a huge one. Like game 5 in Denver, it was 25 turnovers. Last night it was 22. And I feel like that just it there's some rhythm things when Jaden goes out, but like just in general, I mean, as a coach, you know that like that's a kill. Those are killers. The live ball turnovers are just it's less chances for you to score and usually a layup for the other team, layup or dunk.
like I always tell my guys, figuring out how to win isn't super complicated. It's, take care of the ball, rebound, play good defense, make good decisions. But it's hard to do
Hmm.
consistently, to do those things and to keep yourself disciplined. And I think the Wolves are a microcosm of that exact statement. Like, it's not complicated, guys. You have the
Yep.
talent, you know what you're supposed to do, but getting yourself mentally to do it all the time seems to be our biggest hurdle.
Hmm. This Wolves team or this iteration, the last 5, 6 years of it has given me a new perspective. I would have been like, oh, it's over. Like you could just tell we don't got it. And now I'm like, you know what? Finch has done a lot of great coaching. He's pulled the right levers. This team is gritty when they need to be. I kind of feel like they're gonna probably split these home games. We'll go back 2-2, and it'll be a 3-game series. I don't know. I
I'll
like
be interested to see these Spurs young guys
yes,
if they can hold up physically, right? Like
yep,
they're pretty young. I mean, De'Aaron Fox and Barnes are seasoned vets, but the rest of the guys are really young. And the physical toll and mental toll it takes. We saw it happen to the Wolves. I think in that 2 years ago in that Dallas Western Conference, they had nothing left.
yep,
And it was
yep.
clear as day they just had nothing left mentally and physically, and they even
Hmm.
said so after. And I'm wondering if the Spurs will hold up. We'll see. Especially Wemby. He's an alien. He's crazy, but physically he gets banged up a lot, and so
Yep.
we'll see. I think that is something that I'm keeping my eye on how they're going to hold up physically and mentally over these next two games. If they make it through these next two games and nobody's hurt and nobody's out, then I think they'll probably find a way to get this done. But that's the experience, and we got a lot of guys with some old man strength on our team,
Hmm.
and that's a different level of strength.
Even our young guys, quote unquote young guys, Nas and Jaden and Ant and uh Io, like those TJ, they're like, they're pretty experienced players. So like the core of that group has been in the league 6 or 7 years, and Shannon's like a 25-year-old second-year player or whatever,
Yeah.
26 years old. I think he's older than Ant. So I mean, yeah, that's always an interesting thing too, is like these road games with young teams like that. I think of like the Wolves the first couple years, right? They had the Memphis series where they just kind of couldn't finish those games off and lost a couple close ones. And then the next year they're playing Denver and they lose 4-1 and they battle, but they just kind of struggle in some of those fourth quarters as well. And so these road games are in the playoffs, second round, it's going to be interesting, especially if the Wolves come out and kind of punch first, to see how they respond, because you get that home crowd, as we found last night, right? That home crowd gets going and everything's going your way and shots are going in and it just floodgates can open. So, um,
I won't be there, but Target Center is gonna be on fire. Hopefully,
uh-huh.
the Wolves give them something to stay engaged with. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be a loud place, and it's gonna have a lot of energy. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
But as a Minnesota sports fan, you just brace
Don't,
yourself
yeah. Don't
for
say it.
for the for the inevitable heartbreak. But
Yeah.
I just keep coming back for more. I'm a glutton for punishment.
That's right. I mean, you don't get to our age and be a Minnesota sports fan without having a little bit of I mean, we also have to have grit and toughness and,
Yeah.
resolve to continue to come back for
We
this
got the
crap.
scars to show it. That's for sure.
100%. All right. So let's talk a little bit about shooting. You opened McKenzie Shooting Academy, start taking some um, appointments. I don't know what you call them in June.
Training sessions. Yeah.
Training sessions. Okay. How did this come about? And yeah, like what's kind of your mission vision statement for McKenzie Shooting Academy?
So I mean, really it came up, when Egan and I parted ways. I took a look around and said, I'm not ready to just go off into the sunset and be done. As an educator, I have some time in the summer, and I was just thinking, what can I do to stay involved and keep coaching and help some kids out. And so, I talked to Reed Ossie at Catalyst. I talked to Therese Van Pelt at TVP Academy, and I asked them, I said, is there a market for families and players just looking to get better at shooting? Because that's just something that I've identified that I do a pretty good job coaching. I've had numerous guys make over 153s in their career. And it's not just me, but I've been able to help them, with their technique. I've been able to help them with their confidence, and putting them in position to be an elite shooter. And, of course, I taught my sons how to shoot. And my son, Michael McKenzie, was one of the best shooters in the state. He was a senior this year, made over 173s in his varsity career. And it's just something that I identified as something that I enjoy doing and that I'm pretty effective at. So after talking to those guys that are in the space, they said, yes, there's definitely people that are just looking. I need help with my shot. I need to become a better shooter. And that's where I can help them specifically. And so I figured that I would give it a shot and open up some training sessions starting in June. We'll do them on Mondays, and we have a youth session and a high school / college session. We'll have at max eight people, boys and girls, and men and women that are allowed to come. And, I'm really going to focus in on trying to help them become either good shooters if they're at the beginner level, or if they're already a good shooter, help them move to the next level. I've basically will be using the techniques and the system that I use to teach my sons. And I have another son, Andrew, who's coming up. He's an 8th grader right now, going to be a 9th grader next year. And both of them are regarded as some of the best shooters in their class in the state. And, the stuff that I learned and developed and have them go through has been very successful. And I think I can emulate that and help other people. And that's the hope. And we'll give it a shot. And we got some people already signed up for these training sessions. They're filling up quick, and that's a good sign. But hopefully we garner some results.
Well, I'm sure you will. Your history speaks for itself as far as shooting. I think you're right about the market too. Like we were talking earlier about how a lot of the Instagram training videos you see that come through your feed are ball handling and finishing and combination moves and things like that. But there's just not a lot of just straight up shooting, which is still one of the most, the most important part of the game, right? Putting the ball in the basket. So
It's also the biggest equalizer in the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3-point shot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Big runs, start a lot of times with that or end with that, right? When you start coaching shooting, let's just say you got an average shooter, what are the first things you're looking for that they're doing that you could improve? Like is it feet? Is it hand placement? Is it shoulders? What are you looking for?
So the thing that I tend to do is first I just watch the kids shoot a little bit. Everyone has kind of a unique shooting pocket, is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many great shooters, but to give you an example, like Steph Curry has a totally different shooting pocket than Kevin Durant. both of them elite shooters. What they have in common are their placement of the ball under their elbow, their wrist flexion, and the way that their body and their balance is positioned, and really their ability to have their body work together, which is for basically you call rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But the ball placement, the wrist flexion, the balance, and the rhythm are all things that every great shooter needs. Where that is released from, where the shooting pocket um, is can fluctuate. There are things like not everybody is going to shoot exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
My sons were both kind of 6-footers, so we emulated Steph Curry. And I basically studied his shot and the things that he did to get his shot where it was. And that's how I taught my sons. I had another point guard who was an all conference named Oscar Kazan. And he had a more, a higher release, shot more kind of like Kevin Durant style shot. And he shot 46% from three his senior year. Was an absolute great shooter, but he just had a little different shot. But they all had those things, those ball placement under the elbow and great balance, great rhythm. And the thing that's hard with shooting is it's not as fun to work on becoming an elite shooter than it is to become an elite ball handler, elite finisher. Like working on those combo moves and those step backs and those hezzies
Yeah.
and the crossovers and the finishing at the rim. Like those are the fun things to do. Doing 50, mid-range catch and shoot, everything's exactly the same every time isn't as much fun, but it is what you need to do to be an effective shooter. And the players that are willing to do those things are the ones that become great shooters. And it's about repetition. So we kind of break it down into three things. So if I have a kid for an hour, we're going to do 20 minutes of straight technique, where it's just really focusing on those things that I talked about. Form shooting, just mid-range catch and shoot, just constantly doing the same thing over and over again. Then we're going to practice those shots in kind of a game shooting format where, you're getting an inside out pass. You got to make the shot, move different spots, maybe coming off screens, working on the footwork, but doing more of those game speed shots, but repetition of those. And then the last one, and this is the one that a lot of people miss out on when they're training, you got to do competitive shooting drills. Whether you're going against yourself and I have to make this many or I have a consequence, or I'm going against someone else and we're competing, because you have to get that swagger. And there's no way to just get that swagger as a shooter needs unless you're practicing the competition and the pressure that you're going to feel in a game. And you're not going to emulate exactly what that pressure feels like in games, but you can get as close as you can. So we do 20 minutes technique, 20 minutes practice, 20 minutes competition. And that's what I did with my sons. And it really panned out for Michael, and it seems to be doing the same for Andrew. And that's what we did in our Egan camps during the summer. We always had Wednesday was our shooting day, and we would, technique, practice, compete. And, we really, one of the things, I think there was a few programs better than us in shooting, but not a lot of programs better than us at shooting. And, I think that the way that I went ahead and operated in the summer to get those guys focused on the right things helped us during the season. So that's kind of my philosophy on how we go about things.
Love it. Yeah, I think the competition, even if, like you said, it's not exactly game-like, it teaches you to have urgency and, how do you handle and stay calm when the clock is running down and you don't want to do your consequence, right? Like whatever that is, like
Yeah.
a 2-minute wall sit. Man, I really don't want to do that. I got to make the shot like that. At least it's like any other practice, right? That repetition of having that pressure and learning to deal with it. So,
Yeah. It's
I love it.
amazing what kids will do to avoid 10 push-ups.
True. Yeah. Yeah. We find that out too. I'm curious on footwork, on shooting and what your philosophy is. There's obviously a few different ways people teach it, and depending on like where you are on the floor, depending on where, if you're coming off screens and which types of screens, do you kind of like go through a progression of footwork, or do you try to teach like all of it so that there are different scenarios where you're going to use that different footwork?
Well, the first thing is, we were talking about this earlier, but when we grew up, it was both feet pointed at your target, shoulders square, like that's how you shot, right? But as Steph Curry came into the world and kind of what I would say has perfected the shooting form, as well as I've seen. I mean, there might be someone who comes and does it better, but that'll be amazing. Um, what you see is they kind of turn their toes a little bit. They kind of turn and twist their body a little bit. And the thought process being when you shoot, your body naturally wants to twist. And one of the main things about elite shooters is there's no wasted movement. Like you want
Hmm.
to be in total control of any movement that's happening. So first thing is just turning those feet a little bit. And that's something new in the last 10, 15 years that you do. And then that really lines up your legs with your elbow and get your body under the ball. So that's one thing that I've really adjusted on over the years based on when I was shooting, based on how I teach my kids. The other thing is, some people like to 1-2 step into their shot and some people like to hop. What
Hmm.
I've learned is doesn't matter. Like do what's you feel most comfortable with. Now, when you hop into the shot, you can use either foot as your pivot foot. So that's a
Right.
benefit of that. When you 1-2 into it, you kind of establish what that pivot foot's going to be. But
Hmm.
some guys feel like that gives them a lot more control and they're much more, uh, you know, um, in rhythm that way. But the main thing is with your feet, they got to be locked and loaded when the ball gets there, right? What a lot of young guys do that I've seen that are inconsistent with their shot. They may have good form, they may have a lot of things, but they catch and then they dip and then they shoot, right? And so your footwork, whether you hop into it or 1-2 step into it, you want to be locked and loaded when that ball gets there, so you're not again having a bunch of wasted movement, which it has to be correct every time. And if you eliminate that dip, then you're eliminating some movement that you have to correct every time. Um, but there's things like when I come off screens, I do still teach inside foot coming off screens when you're curling off screens. Get inside foot because your body's going to follow. If you can get that foot turned inside, the rest of your body's going to follow. So that's the one area where I'm kind of, inside foot is probably the best thing when you're coming off, pin down screens and things of that
Hmm.
nature. But when you're coming off flare screens and things of that, whether you 1-2 into it or hop into it, it's really up to you. Or if you're getting an inside out pass and you're either 1-2 or hop into it, it's really up to you. As long as you're locked and loaded. So there's a lot of different scenarios where the footwork's important. Um, but the main thing is you got to get your body underneath the ball, and you got to get yourself in position to have good rhythm and eliminate that wasted movement. If you do those things, then you give yourself a really good chance to be a good shooter.
One of the things that I've always appreciated about Steph Curry is his conditioning and his like no standing, right? He is moving a lot. And as someone who was not very quick myself and is still never became quick at all. Um, and if you can shoot a little bit, people are gonna just, always be on you, right? So getting free and being very active off the ball and just needing a little bit of space, but how do you create that space? I'm assuming there's drills or like how do you incorporate conditioning and movement into shooting to maximize that?
Yeah, there's drills that you can do, but we definitely work on things where guys will be at the 3-point line, and then I'll have them sprint to the block and then pretend like they're coming off a pin down and and then being ready to hit that shot, being ready to go, emulating those type of movements. You know, I call it the Michael Jordan drill, where you have guys on the elbows and they have a ball and a rebounder, and you're just going back and forth coming off that inside foot for like a minute. Because yeah, that is true. Like right now, I could go hit 8 of 10 from each spot at the 3-point line right now. But if you made me run up and down the court, I'm hitting 3 of 10, 4 of 10 in an empty gym. Like,
Yeah.
shooting is different when you're not conditioned. Like anybody can be a decent shooter if you don't have to sprint around and be conditioned. Steph Curry takes it to a different level. I've never seen anyone move without the ball as well as he does. The other things that he does really well of is set up his cuts, is just walk guys down, be a little physical, and then he comes off shoulders, and he reads how the defense is playing them, and he anticipates, are they gonna, try to knife through the screen? Are they gonna chase? And using his screens well, and that's high level stuff that it's even my son Michael, who saw a lot of face guarding in his high school career. He had a tough time, figuring out how to get himself open when they were face guarding. And those are the things we worked on. Like, be a little patient, have a little deception, make them think you're going to go off a different screen and then go off the screen that you're supposed to come off of. Having some patience, using their aggression against them by mixing in a back cut from time to time. Those things are super important, really hard to teach, and even harder for athletes to be in condition well enough to actually do. But those are all things that we'll try to work on at the shooting academy, depending on what level that each player is at.
Yeah, I mean, not to turn this into a Steph Curry love fest, but I mean, his
When you're
finishing around
talking
the rim is
shooting, you kind of need to.
you kind of have to, true. But his finishing around the rim and his cutting and his ability to hit floaters in the lane, like, he doesn't settle. Like, that's the thing about him. Yes, it's the flashy threes, it's the deep logo shots, but he does so many other things that keep the defense honest that it is just, it's fun to watch him just navigate a game from start to finish.
Yeah, and he had to develop those things because, those don't come naturally. And he's a world-class athlete, but as far as NBA players go, he's a little above average athlete. And so
Yeah.
he had to learn how to set his guys up, how to make those movements. And then his ball handling is good. And that's the other thing is I've seen a lot of really good shooters over my years that are really good at catch and shoot. Like, wow, he can really catch and shoot. What sets some other shooters apart from those are the guys who can shoot off the dribble, that can come off a ball screen or set their guy up and be just as effective off the dribble. And that's kind of what sets some dudes apart is I can not only catch and shoot and make at 40%, but I can also you know hit a step in three off a fast break, with the ball in my hand, or come off a ball screen and you're in drop coverage and hit a three. And that's a different type of training, and I think a lot of kids and a lot of families and trainers focus on that catch and shoot, and that determines whether you're a great shooter. But at this day and age, you got to be equally as good off the dribble.
Yeah. 100%. It's I would say maybe the difference between a shooter and a scorer, right? Like, scorers, you're taking what you get. Shooters are just kind of, you don't want, in my opinion, like, that's just a tough place to be, because eventually somebody can, it is harder to guard someone who can cut, who can, you know, come off a screen and attack the middle of the floor and hit a pull up, from 10, 12 feet. That's just, the difference in mentality of a scorer and being content, just catch and shoot, like you said.
And you see that I saw that the biggest jump I saw was when James Harden was with OKC in his younger years, he was a catch and shoot guy. You know, he was playing off Westbrook and Durant, and he would hit threes off catch and shoot. And then he got to Houston, and he developed just that crazy step back and being able to pull up off screens, and then he was just a different animal once he started doing that. So you gotta be versatile if you want to be an elite shooter. It can't just be catch and shoot, because then you're totally reliant on other guys to get you the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited for you, man.
Thanks.
This is awesome. What's the website if people want to find you?
It's McKenzie shooting.McKenzie.com.
Ooh, all right. Easy to remember. I like it.
Yeah, pretty
Good name.
And just we're calling it MSA to make it a little simpler, but
nice. I assume it's on Instagram as well. Is that primarily where you're at? Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram right now. We just rolled out the website 2 weeks ago. So just trying to build it up and start small, see where it goes from there. But excited to work with anybody that wants to become a great shooter.
Awesome, man. And then lastly, when do your sessions start? June, I know you said
the
sometime.
first one is June 15th. We do have some spots open there. We're going to be every Monday during the summer in the afternoon. I think one session's 12:30 to 1:30, and then 1:30 to 2:30. So it's a little dependent on your schedule. As things get busier, we'll try to add some more sessions, but wanted to fill these Monday slots up first and take it from there.
Awesome. Well, if you have a child interested, or yourself, I think most of the audience here is probably more in the child age. You have children of your own, but yeah, hit up McKenzie Shooting Academy. Kevin, it's always great to have you on. Good to talk to you as always, man.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Love talking Wolves with you. Let's go get some wins here this weekend.
I want to thank Kevin McKenzie from McKenzie Shooting Academy again for joining me. Great conversation. Always fun to catch up with him and pick his brain on basketball. And today we focused obviously on shooting and shooting mechanics as he opens the McKenzie Shooting Academy down in Burnsville. Excited for Game 3 and Game 4 this weekend. We'll be watching on Friday night at a establishment in Minneapolis. So excited to kind of be around the crowd and the environment and get a little bit of taste of the group setting. Hopefully the Wolves can play a little bit better than they did Game 2. And then next week we'll have an episode on pickup basketball, a really exciting conversation about the nuances and the uniqueness that is pickup basketball. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate you being here. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.
Back in that bag again.